I mean,
Hey there,
it's not
everyone.
scary.
Welcome.
Sorry, no,
We're
please
going
go
to go
ahead.
ahead. The awkward transition we were just speaking about. Yeah, so everybody, hello. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a couple minutes. So we'll let everybody join and we'll get started here shortly.
But yeah, it's a good idea, Thomas. I just don't know how you're going to get the squirrel in there in the first place. But that's why you're the CEO and I'm the chief cloud economist. Or
Yeah,
CTO. It's
yeah,
a very technical thing with squirrel
yeah,
shuttering.
I mean, when you know this, starting a company, you're everything. You wear all the hats. Your CFO, your CEO, your
Some more
CTO,
ridiculous than others.
and then as you grow, you start taking off those hats. Now, clearly, you've kept your hat on. I don't know what that role is. Almost like a jester.
Sort of. This is the old Santa hat in my company colors before the Duckbill Group rebrand and away from the back in the olden days of last week in AWS, we had a gray cloud on a yellow cloud superimposed, and I thought it looked great until the first person looked at it and said, "What's up with the cloud taco?" And it was, oh dear Lord. Yeah, it turns out that
Yeah.
having a designer who knows what's up and can see these things in advance is a useful thing. Again, we
Right.
live, we learn.
Yeah.
We live, we get
And we're
older.
having our holiday party this week, so we're having this "Bring Your Ugliest Sweater" contest and the classic holiday, games, I guess you could say.
Yep, sounds good. Well, I think we're a couple minutes in here, so hopefully that gave everyone a chance to join. Looks like we've got some attendees hopping on, so we can go ahead and kick things off. So first, I just want to say welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm assuming that based on the fact that Corey is on the line, this will be, as advertised, a raucous reInvent recap. So I don't really have too much of an intro other than to say welcome. So Corey Quinn is here. And I forgot to ask you beforehand how to introduce you, but I was thinking you're either famous or infamous with the AWS crowd probably. So I'll leave it at that. And then do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for anyone who's not familiar with you, Corey?
Sure. I'm very close to one end of the corporate to bullshit spectrum, and you can probably figure out which side that is. I'm Chief Cloud Economist Corey Quinn of the Duckbill Group, fixing the horrifying AWS bills. I write the Last Week in AWS newsletter, the accompanying pair of podcasts, Screaming in the Cloud and the AWS Morning Brief, and I more or less taunt large cloud companies that have exceeded $1 trillion in market cap because of deep-seated personality problems.
Awesome. Yeah. And
Amazing.
yeah, I'm Thomas Hazel, founder, CTO here at Chaos Search, telegraphing outside of Boston. So I don't have my Santa hat on, but maybe for next time.
Great. And for anyone, just super quick notes, as you all know, webinars aren't new to anyone. You can feel free to add any questions in the chat and we will answer those probably as we go. This is a very informal, podcast-esque conversational webinar. So welcome everyone. Feel free to add comments and questions in the chat. And with that, I'm going to just go ahead and hand it over to Thomas to kick us off.
I guess I'll start, but I know, Corey, you were just commenting on our use of, GoToWebinar as a tool. Now, you gotta know, I'm a little older. We're located in Boston, so the log me in genre. So we still have this account on our payroll. So you don't have to make too much fun of the old school tooling that we're using here, maybe.
It's thematically appropriate. I mean, the whole keynote thrust was very clearly aimed at enterprises. And though they say, "Oh no, we're very much about developers," at the same time, they're talking about things from your era, like mainframe migrations. And they had to really step around calling their mainframe migration thing the AWS 400. Like, you're going to partner with IBM and all kinds of other nonsense, but not that. Come on. But here we are.
No. Fair enough. And actually, I know there's a couple of topics of outside Amazon's comfort zone of product offerings, but I'll jump into some of my hot takes with respect to what I saw. First and foremost, it was so nice to go to a re:Invent in person without having that virtual experience we had last year. It wasn't my cup of tea on that virtual, but maybe it was 1/3 the crowd, but how they organized it, it felt full and packed. And, these are the people that we
Yeah,
want
they
to
still
talk
packed us
to.
in like sardines if you didn't go. Don't worry, it was great.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
let's talk about
And
high risk movers. If there'd been an outbreak, everyone would have called it reinfect for the rest of the time.
actually, that's a good point. I mean, I felt we were all, we all had to show our vaccination cards, wear masks 24/7. But it was really great to see everyone and to talk to the community key to our customers. So to me, it was a major win by Amazon to hold the event. And though maybe it was 1/3, although it was getting, I mean, this, what was it, last year or 2 years ago? It was like almost 80,000. I can't even remember what the size was, but this
I think
year,
65 2 years ago, and virtual, who knows or cares, because basically you're staring into a camera anyway. And then you had the, I think 20 or 25 this year. And
yeah,
I've been checking. I haven't heard any stories yet of positive COVID tests. I spent half a week in a hotel
I
and
think they
before I
did a great
tested.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think they did a great job. It's funny, and everyone, who's there, let's say, follow the good rules. I know you had a clever mask that you could see actually your face, which was quite
It's
clever.
oddly disconcerting is how that was best described, I think.
Yeah, I chose the comfiest mask I could find. I tried out 5, and when you're wearing a mask 24/7, you can imagine, you know. But no, I
I
thought
think
that
we might have a picture of that. Let me
oh,
see.
great.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, there we are. It
The
went about as
uncanny
well as you would
valley.
imagine.
Yeah, that's perfect. And
What's great was
it's
talking
funny.
to a few high-level Amazon folks while I was there, and they're sitting down like and asking them questions during the analyst summit. And like, well, on balance, we look. Can I get you another mask? This is really disconcerting. I can't deal with this. And yeah, it was great.
Well, it's funny. I saw somebody that had one of those clear masks, and this person had such a large mouth. It almost looked like from the Mask, the movie, where the mouth looked like 3x the size, and it was kind of jarring to be frank. Or I had the case where I couldn't hear somebody, and so the joke is you may get a little too close. You're trying to listen into what their muffled sound is. But no, but honest to God, it was a great event for us. And I know Corey, you walk around the whole floor. Love to, what your big takes away are as well. Maybe you kick off one and I'll kick off the other and we'll keep it going.
Cool. The big take I took away from is that they emphasize this as a story of improving the fundamental/primitive services, which is an absolutely genius spin on the actual truth of, yeah, we tried to launch a whole bunch of bullshit services like we do every year, but all those teams tend to miss the cutoff to get it on stage at reInvent. Great. I really like their new managed database service because they didn't have one. And I think that's a great direction to keep moving in. And I think that on some level, the things that they released were not, how to put this, they aren't exciting, yet somehow I'm excited about them. The idea of making intelligent tiering for S3 ever more capable and cost effective is a big deal in my world, but I'm also sad. So let's be clear, that's the sort of thing that I find super interesting. But most people have lives, and that's great. Then you have the keynote, which is sort of discordant, and they're talking about how they're solving customer problems. Well, I'm not sure who the customer of today is, but I'm the customer of yesteryear, where I'm put on to build a web app here. It's web services right there in the name. And they're like, you have trouble managing your army of 10,000 robots. And I'm sitting there going, no, not really. I look at the problems I have, and most would be made significantly worse with a robot army. A few would be made better, but most worse. So that was an interesting direction.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I would say that this year particularly, I was surprised there wasn't big surprises. As you were indicating, Amazon's known for some major announcements, and I know there were some interesting announcements. And to your point about making like Redshift serverless, keeping up with companies like Snowflake, et cetera, as well as Kinesis, making it more server oriented. I think these are all wise and good, incremental changes. As Chaos Search is a serverless type experience where you don't have to worry about that provision. So I think that was key. But yeah, there was no big major announcements that I took away. I mean, I know the 5G private networks was a big announcement. I'm not sure it doesn't affect our customer base that we talk to, but whether it's competing against multi-clouds, I'd love to get your take on that announcement.
I don't really know who that's for, and I will pay someone a shiny dollar if they can clearly disambiguate in tweet form or less what the difference is between private 5G and wavelength. But that's one of those questions I feel like is not great to ask. I also wonder what the hell they're going to do when 6G eventually drops, because Amazon never turns anything off. And of course, they're going to take an Amazonian naming approach and relaunch it as private 5G version 2.
I mean, what I heard is that, everything's going, let's say 5G is going to be wireless. And, the idea is, what is a cloud, right? What is a cloud when you're not wired, right? When you're truly wireless. And, I think there's something there, but our customers haven't been talking about it. So that was an interesting, a big announcement. I know that it was getting a lot of press, but again, like you said, I didn't hear too much from our customers. Now, S3, as you indicated, near dear to our heart. Everything that Amazon does in cloud arbitrage storage to benefit their customer benefits our customers, and having more cost-effective or fast retrieval on Glacier is really a huge benefit, because as we all know, cloud storage is becoming the #1 place to store data. It's cost-effective, secure, reliable, and again, we activate that. We make it accessible via search or SQL. So yeah, I love the empowerment of object storage in S3.
I love the bucket setting that lets you basically disable ACLs, because again, remember, IAM didn't come out till 2010. S3 was there in beta 5 years before that. So it's like terrific. This great new feature. Well, oh, great, another feature. What's it do? It lets you turn off this bullshit. Like, yes, can I pay you extra for that? Like, damn it, we should have charged for it. Here we are. Because S3 bucket permissions are a pain in the ass. Let's not kid ourselves. So having to deal with that in conjunction with bucket policies, in conjunction with IAM credentials, is just, it's too much, and it doesn't work. And that, I strongly suspect, leads to people saying, the hell with it, I'm opening it to the world. And here we are.
Right. Well, it's funny. The power that they do provide, it does become a little bit of, let's call it a mess of what has been set. What's the graph of those policies? And for the Amazonians that hear this, love more advanced visualization of how the policies interact and the access controls, because that is hard to consume. And to your point, Corey, just turn everything off. Let's start from scratch. Or the worst case is open everything up. Everyone has access now. Hey, I did my job.
That's really, on some level, it's important. It's valuable. One thing I'd love to see, that the two S3 requests, if people from that team are listening, I'm sure someone from AWS PR is sitting there seething and of course declining to comment because they work in PR. But the two things I'd want to see change are, one, I want to be able to have a default storage class set per bucket, which is important, because I don't want to have to do a lifecycle transition. I don't want to teach my legacy applications about new storage classes. In some cases I can't. And the other is, I would love it if I could move open buckets to different accounts. And I know that sounds weird, but as soon as I do that, I can officially say, in this account, there are no open buckets. And I can do it now except for that one. And if I make that one not where it is, I have things that are public facing to the world that break and will break for 24 hours or so. So there has to be a better answer.
Yeah, it's funny. And I know, Wayne and Mei Lang were on some analysts' presentation last week, and they said Amazon S3 now has 200 trillion objects, and growing. So I still want to know what the size. They stopped saying what the overall. I mean, I know it's in exabytes, but like, how many exabytes, right? Come on, let's know that. I know it's to us, it's the most scalable, cost-effective, reliable, secure environment. However, those little tidbits, I'm a nerd. I want to know.
I would not be astounded to learn that there are individual commercial customers that are approaching, if not at, the exabyte limit, which tells me that across all regions and across all customers, including their internal ones, are we sure it stops at exabytes?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Good point. Well, it's funny. We were talking to a customer that each region is going to be in the petabyte to exabyte for the things that they want to do, and that's just one of many big companies generating lots of data. My ride's here. I don't know if you hear the ambulance.
Good. Well, Splunk had their conference somewhat recently, and Steve Schmidt, AWS's CISO, said that they throw off, what was it? It was 500 petabytes of raw security information a day. Wow. And I couldn't hear the second half of his sentence because of every salesperson from Splunk in the room audibly wetting themselves, which is, great. yeah, you can tell they charge a certain way. It's and that's like that is a stupendous pile of data that gets thrown off. One number I would love to see them be much more public about is the amount of throughput the billing system deals with.
Mm,
I
mm.
think that is a large scale system that people don't think about nearly enough. It's also one of the most thankless jobs in all of AWS because at least IAM people look at that and say, thanks for making sure that we're secure. No one looks at the bill and thanks them for it. Let's be very serious
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Although Amazon, I love your cloud. I love your services. We have set up alerts of make sure the estimates are always way off in the first like 2 days into the month, and I'm like, we're going to spend that, and it's there's a math calculation that seems can be a little bit. I'm used to the jolt that I get when I look at it, but no, I can't complain. I love their S3 service. I love their EC2 components. I did there could be an announcement. We were testing some of Amazon's new instance types that they're coming out because obviously we are compute and cloud storage. We use no local storage, but compute, more cost-effective compute, higher performance compute are always things that are near dear to really everybody. But you can imagine for us in general. I know they're starting to really push the AMD instances, right? I don't know if you heard anything about that, Corey.
I don't love their marketing around the AMD instances because the three things they have are Intel, which it's clear that relationship is degrading on some level. Intel did not have a presence at Physical reInvent this year because they are following their roadmap and will show up at reInvent next week. There's AMD, which has always been positioned as it's less expensive when you don't need as much compute, but I think that's selling AMD significantly short. And then they have Graviton, previously Graviton 2. They pre-announced their Graviton 3. I imagine Graviton 3 was ready 2 years ago, but they didn't know what the hell to call it. So it took them 2 years to come up with Graviton 3 instead of 2. Awesome. And they're marketing that a little heavily, which is, I mean, the world is moving to ARM. Let's be clear. I think that is very much not in dispute. My laptop is ARM, my tablet is ARM, my phone is ARM, and my instances are ARM. Great. And they talk about things like, oh, Fargate now supports ARM. Cool. I can run ARM compiled containers. And RDS now supports Graviton 2. It's a managed service. As long as it speaks the database engine on it, I don't actually care about the rest. And it gets increasingly like I don't care. I just care about price performance. Like there's a spectrum from EC2 instances and where I really care about the processor architecture and the thing itself. On the other, and that is I really care about it. And on the other end of that spectrum is things like Comprehend or any other higher level managed machine learning services. What does it use underneath? I could not possibly give less of a shit. I don't even care if it's computers versus people who are very good at these things, working extremely quickly. I just want it to work. And talking about Graviton on some level, it feels like some marketing division got a little carried away and started talking about it where it's not actually relevant.
Yeah, well, I'll add to that. I mean, we hear this announcements about being more serverless from Redshift and Kinesis. I want true on-demand compute, right? Because still today, it's not a service, right? Sure, it's virtual, but it's not a service. I would love, because our architecture is truly a stateless, distributed, I want compute, let it go. But we have to reserve compute. Why? Because you can't get it if you don't reserve it. And if it's a busy day, maybe it's US East West.
Are you talking capacity reservations or?
Yeah. I mean, it's an ask. It's not a tell. Where like if I use object storage and I want to keep on putting more data in, it scales. It scales. But with compute, I don't know why they do that, but the spot instance never really delivered on the hope and promise. But to me, EC2 compute is less of a true service where I would love to be able to just allocate and go and not worry about it. But I know with this ARM movement, they're trying to come up with a new naming convention. Do I have an I? Do I have a what is the right instance name? So they're listen, they started real early and they're moving through naming conventions like a Graviton, I guess.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of fun to be had around the names, but there's also a bunch of things that aren't really services that launched, like Repost. Great name, by the way. I love that. It's a reskin of the forums, but they didn't fix any actual problems with the forums. You still have to federate to it through an AWS account, which first, let's be clear, that now makes that inadvertently the most expensive paywall in the history of the entire internet, if you get that one wrong. but it's also, I have a bunch of AWS accounts. Which one do I federate with? If it's
Right.
not an SSO account with a 12-hour window, if it's an assumed role or something, great. I have a 1-hour expiry on that, so I have to log in again. It means it's tied to my employer, so I lose my entire persona if I change jobs at some point, lose access to that AWS account. It's just, and again, they have talked to a whole bunch of people about this, and people have been beating them up on this for years. So it is frustrating. It feels like they've waited this long. They couldn't wait to get it right. It's just annoying. I logged into it exactly once, and that was to reserve my Quinny Pig username there because I don't want people squatting that thing if I can avoid it. And
Right.
that's all I do there. It's not where I spend my time.
No. Well said. Lisa, I see you come on camera. Are we up on time, or we have a little more?
No, we're doing great. We have some great questions coming in, so I thought I would jump in if you guys are at a good point to take a couple questions.
Sure.
So great. So the first one says, how long do you think until they set auto tiering in S3 as the default? 10 years, never, too much AWS profit downside. Related, does anybody see seemingly unbounded exponential growth in cloud storage to be a possible problem going forward?
Wow, that's a lot of packed up there. I mean, for me personally, the more you can automate and it benefits me and I spend less, the better. And so if it, that's interesting. I mean, if it delivers on what I would love is cheaper, faster, better storage. I hope they do it, ASAP, and then shoot, everything just works. I mean, the fast retrieval, et cetera. So I'm open to the auto as long as it delivers the price performance that Corey just indicated, which everyone seems to want, right? That's in the end what you care about.
The auto scaling of S3 is interesting. The idea of auto tiering and having the intelligent tiering be the default. There are a couple of vertex cases where you have an extreme level of insight into the knowledge of what your object size is. If you have objects that are always going to be 150K, for example, well, great, you're going to be paid a monitoring fee for that, but the monitoring fee will outweigh any savings you get by auto aging those things out. So until you get 200 to 300 kilobytes, it doesn't make sense. I did run the exact math again since they changed the pricing somewhere. But that is something to be aware of. There's also the idea of a whole bunch of objects on those margins that you your use cases super well. The monitoring charge potentially offsets the benefit you get from very well crafted policies. But even in those cases, except in the extreme examples, not having to think about it carries significant value. And I would love to be able to set that as a I think as a default, it makes sense. I think you'd be hard pressed to argue otherwise. And I'm looking forward to that. Now, as far as the question of unbounded exponential growth in storage goes, being a problem, well, a problem for whom? Are we talking about the customers? Because, money, it's always a thing. Are we talking about AWS? They can rack drives faster than we can fill them. I've checked. Or the planet, because there's a non-zero climate impact to storing data forever on spinning disks. So what does that look like longer term? I loved, incidentally, in Peter DeSantis's keynote, where he talked for the first time, is the first public admission we have that S3 operates via Reed-Solomon style erasure coding. It's been suspected for a long time, and there really was no other option, but it was great to hear them say it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, the power of cloud object storage, the distributed nature of scaling that was purposeful, right? And so the distributed hash, whatever you want to call it, really lends itself to that natural scale. But to Corey's point, they're brilliant at adding more capacity to their data centers. I would like to know that total cost of ownership and the electricity used for that type of scale, but maybe if the disks aren't spinning, it isn't too bad, right? Yeah, no, I love S3. I mean, listen, I bet the whole company on cloud object storage and S3, and obviously, this is beyond, just Amazon has cloud storage. So to us, the better, more cost effective, more intelligent, with driving price performance. I love it.
I think it's a solid win for customers. This is the sort of change that's going to be actually impactful to everyone, not some newfangled machine learning thing. They announced a whole bunch of service launches with the word SageMaker in front of them, so I don't care. They also talk about like their IoT fleet-wise, super interesting, but it's telemetry from your fleet of autonomous vehicles, and I'm sure those 5 companies are super thrilled. But that for the rest of us, that doesn't really help. Their digital twin idea of we're going to have a digital replica of a thing that exists in the real world, like a car or whatnot. It's like, I feel like that is sort of the NFTs of AWS's entire ecosystem right now. And I don't like those things to begin with.
Well, I do agree that there's a lot of SageMaker announcements that you're kind of looking like, does this matter? Does this matter? A lot of free, a lot of, hey, empowered new folks to use it. We don't use that service, so it wasn't of interest to me. Now something like a CloudWatch where I thought that was interesting. I don't know, maybe it's trying to compete with other products out there, but these are things that affect our customers and the monitoring of browser activity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are good. I haven't, obviously jumped into how much it offers, but I've read up about it. That seemed interesting to me. But as you said, the machine learning SageMaker, there's somebody that cares. It's just, not us right now.
Yeah, I do have some customers that legitimately care about this, which means I need to start looking into it a bit more, at least to understand the moving parts. It's not complete nonsense. I thought it was, but I've talked to enough people doing interesting things with it, and now I'm seeing the spend show up to a point where it's not a toy. So, okay, it's time to stop being quietly or loudly dismissive and actually dig into it a bit.
Yeah,
Still challenge with a lot of the machine learning space. The most effective tooling, and education I've seen about this is all on Google Cloud so far. So
yeah.
we'll see how it plays out.
I mean, and with any type of machine learning, when it's scale and there's cost, you'll know that Chaos Search is going after that opportunity as well. So to be determined, to be seen soon. But
yes, it's the grand secret of company. Don't tell anyone we're going to pour some machine learning snake oil on the thing we're selling. It's generally my default take. Every startup, it's like, well, why in the world would you put the words machine learning in that press release? Because watch what our valuation's about to do. Got it.
yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, but I have to say,
I was going to
sorry.
say, go ahead, and we've got a few more questions, so I want to make sure we get to them.
Okay, yeah, go.
Finish here.
Questions
Okay.
aboard. Yeah.
All right, so Aaron says the recent outages in US East 1 have highlighted some of the problems with non-regional services, such as root logon, S3 console management, and some billing/invoicing. Why does this problem exist? Are AWS just being lazy or hypocritical, especially when you consider how much they promote cross-AZ region architecture?
Yeah, a really good point. I mean, we had that effect in our customers, were, okay, what are you doing? What's going on? And, the good news is how our architecture worked. We weren't overly affected by it, but these are concerns. So, great question. Great. I mean, I'd love to get better, easier access so that we can get more observability into what's going on. I don't know, Corey, how much your customers have been talking about this?
Everyone's talking about it because it highlights some systemic risk here. I want to be clear. There are two things to say about this. First is I am not dunking on any of the service teams in particular or any of the people working on this. This stuff is hard. HugOps is a thing. I get it. And I don't think AWS has done anything wrong here. Simultaneously, and I have a whole nonsense post coming out about this tomorrow, it has gotten large enough now where this is a systemic risk. If US East 1 was hard down for multiple days, that has an observable impact on the global economy, and that is messed up. It used to be that, like, back before cloud, you would run your data center, and I'd run my data center, and I trip over a power cable and I'm down today. And tomorrow you forgot to actually check whether your disks are filling up and you're down tomorrow. But now everyone's down at the same time. It's across multiple industries, it's multiple players in that industry. And the way that the world works with third-party dependencies and integrations like that, all right, well, we're totally on Google Cloud and things are awesome, except for the part where, oh dear, we're also on Stripe. And Stripe is on AWS, so we're still not able to process payments even though our site is up. Assuming that I don't actually know whether Stripe has a DR plan that extends beyond AWS or not. I assume so, given that they are basically an API for money, but it makes a good illustrative point.
No, I agree. And, luckily we're past, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? Think about commerce and services and websites during that time. So, these are, too big to fail, but what's the story of the failover regions, failing over zones? And obviously failing regions is tricky because you have a GDPR requirement. So maybe zones, more than one zone, that you need to address, but these are really great questions.
Very good. And the next one we have from Fahim. He says, Did you guys catch Deepak Singh's talk about containers on AWS? It looked like Deepak is not a fan of containers and wants the world to use EC2 and Fargate as much as possible. Looks like Google and Microsoft are innovating in the managed K8s much more than AWS does.
I would not say that he is not a fan of containers, given that he runs the entire container org. I would also point out that Fargate requires containers. There's no other option there. I think he's not a fan of things like, I would assume anyway, that he's not such a huge fan of Kubernetes because most sensible people aren't. If you're going to, there's a reason I bought a domain a while back, KubernetesTheEasyWay.com. If you pull it up and visit it, it will go to the ECS marketing page because that's the right answer. It is, if you're all in on AWS, and as I advocate with on a per workload basis, pick a provider and go all in most cases, great. Then you're able to leverage a lot of those things that Kubernetes makes a little more complicated and a little more finicky and the rest. Please don't email me. It's imperative you not email me. That said, like I think everyone has their own opinions on this. As I mentioned, there are 17 ways to run containers. I wrote an article on that. And then another article, 17 more ways to run containers, all on AWS. And I'm halfway through the list for the third version of this, which is just nuts. But okay, now we've got this, so all these different ways to do it. Some of them are brilliant, some of them are terrible. And I think it is a very human thing to have opinions about which ones are preferred and which ones aren't. But understand that all these services exist for a reason. They're all there to serve a customer need. Whether they serve it well or not is a subject of some debate, but they aren't building these services in a vacuum, and no AWS services for everyone, except the bill.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. And so, I mean, I agree with Corey. Containers remain other questions, the orchestration, whether it's Swarm, which kind of went down, Kubernetes. We did our own orchestration because of the needs and requirements that we have. Kubernetes Swarm wasn't going to get us there. I love innovation in this space. Love, hate, we know this APIs change over time, technology changes over time. Orchestration of containers and maybe some new form of micro something is going to come out. So, I think it's evolution. I see more as an evolution of learnings, right?
Yeah, we learn as we go. And I take a look at how I build Lambda functions. Well, now you can use containers to deploy them. It's an easier right path in many respects. But let's be clear here. I finally figured out how to get Lambda functions working years ago. And how do I do a new project now? You're right. I copy and paste from what I did before because it's easier.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. Well, we have another question. Sandra wants to know, what's your take on AWS Amplify Studio?
I like the idea.
I haven't taken a look at
To
it.
be clear, it's a low code, but don't call it that option, where it integrates with, I think, Figma, which is either some kind of mythical dragon in one of my daughter's shows, or it's a design and interface, and then it'll build API stuff to tie it all together. Great. This is what I wanted Amplify to be originally, and I'm very excited about it. I just haven't had the chance to try it yet, so this is all based upon what they said on stage. Let's be clear, everything looks amazing when you demo it on stage, mostly. The problem is that it's a rubber meets the road question. I've been using Retool for a lot of this stuff. I tie together a bunch of crappy APIs I built to use my newsletter publication system every week. I would love it if I could build something a little more customized with that. But the real question becomes, how much JavaScript do I really need to know in order for that handoff to work? Is it just click a button and it deploys, or is there something more to it? I need to figure that out, and I need to build something with it. I blocked out some time to do it, and that was the Tuesday where the internet fell over in US East 1. And I'm not going to do a run through a new service when they're having issues in the control plane in their primary region, because weird issues you run into, like there is a bleed effect of this stuff and things that they swear, oh, it's a separate region, completely isolated. But yeah, but there's this weird dependency tied to a dependency that is impacted. So you see these weird edge case teething issues. And I want to be fair to a new service when there's a significant global disruption. I don't think that's the day to give a fair test to something new.
Well said. I haven't taken a look, but hey, anything that's automated sounds good. But devil's in details on these things, right?
Yeah. To be clear, my biggest problem with JavaScript is me. I don't think like that. Every time I try and get into it, I get more confused than I was when I started. I do not, for the life of me, understand these people on Twitter who say front end is easy. What the hell planet are you from? It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Awesome. Well, let's see. I think we're just about at time. So, Thomas, one more question for you. and this one is more of a question that we had kind of come up with, but I think it's interesting to discuss. So
If it's a product question about Chaos Search, I swear, like if you're gonna plant the question like that, you can't call it out like that. But please, no pressure. Continue.
I'm trying to be honest here, Corey. This is a seed question, just to give us an opportunity. So Thomas, I mean, we're wanting to know if you can imagine ahead to what Chaos Search might be announcing next year at reInvent.
Well, I mean, we're going to be announcing things that are not necessary in Amazon, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm going to counter that with what the heck is wrong with people who announce things at reInvent? If it's on stage with AWS, then yes, you should probably do that announcement at reInvent. But I got a whole bunch of press release stuff for the browser. We're announcing a big thing at reInvent. It's like, is it on stage? No. Where's it going to be? On our website? Is it your data breach? Because that's the one week where all the tech press is paying zero attention. It's your only chance you've really got to slide that under the radar. Other than that, maybe not do it that 1 week. But
I mean,
I'll keep fighting that battle.
Yeah, I mean, a year from now, we've had a journey, a mission to bring multi-model access to our solution. We cut our teeth on logs. We're coming out now with BI. We will be coming out with, not what a SageMaker is, but an ML ability in the exact same platform, the exact same representation that we store in our custom cloud storage. So, we're going to really deliver on the whole full vision of Chaos Search, and excited to have customers and hopefully customers even speaking at our reInvent on our ML capability next year.
Okay, nice. And Corey, we do have a question for you too, which is, what other mask ideas did you come up with that you didn't go with?
Everyone likes to make fun of the open mouth selfie mask, but there was something, it was very intentional, to be clear here. It was the biggest problem a lot of people had is that they walked past people they knew and didn't realize it. It's very hard to look at my mask and not realize who I am. With the secondary effect, when I was running late for a meeting, I put on a regular mask and people didn't stop me, which was awesome. I did consider the idea of like various duckbill platypuses and whatnot. There are a few companies that slap logos on masks. Honestly, I don't know that I necessarily want to have that be part of the branding that I do. It's like, well, when life gives you a global pandemic, make poor marketing decisions. Doesn't really seem like how I try and play these things out. We'll see how it goes. It is, honestly, I keep looking for novelty, and when you see a bunch of other companies doing the same sort of thing, it's, nah, I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction. I want my nonsense to be distinct from most corporate voice stuff. If I ever put something I put on a billboard, I promise you, I am not going to drop $25 million to buy billboard ad space globally across airports without having something interesting to say. And I wish more companies took that philosophy. So I assure you, if I'm going to slap something on your face as marketing, it's going to be interesting.
Well, I can concur. I didn't know that was Corey, and I do know that I saw people at reInvent that they say, "Hey, Thomas, how you doing?" And I didn't know who they were because I saw the mask. I hadn't seen them for a year and a half, if not more, and I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Well, I have a few people I still need to reach out to and apologize to. Andrew Brown, for example, where I'm talking to him and he's wearing a mask, and it's, I know you and I can't place it, and it's like, and he drops like, oh, damn it, it's the, like, you people I know and have spoken to. There are a number of people I consider friends, and it's, I can't place you. To be clear, I'm not great with face to begin with, and the man cutting half of it off is like the eyes of, are you smiling? Are you glaring at me disapprovingly? In my case, I already know the answer, but hope springs eternal, and it's that's challenging for me.
Yeah, we were
every time.
Yeah, we saw a live comedian when we were in Vegas, and she was like, they announced we all had to wear the masks in the bar, and she's like, "That's the one thing I need from you is your laugh hole." I can't see it.
I've also found that giving talks in the silent disco style, where everyone has headphones on and you're basically murmuring directly into their ears, you give a talk. Jokes are a colossal pain in those things, because there's this weird reaction of, I'm wearing headphones and I'm listening to something funny, but I can't laugh because that feels like someone sitting there on the bus and just suddenly bursts out laughing out of nowhere. It's like, oh, you're that person. No. It's very hard to get the audience to crack a smile, even in the before times, with the crooning into their ear virtual style.
Yeah, Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. There was a question from Maureen about the recording. Yes, we will send that out. Andrew and Erin, I saw you guys had some more questions, so we'll follow up with you guys afterwards. And then, so as we close, Corey, are there any places where people can find you, either online or will you be at upcoming physical events?
I will be at, well, yes, is the short answer. I'm not sure what my travel schedule looks like yet. I'll probably be at Reinforce doing a Requin Force nonsense thing in June, which they announced is going to be in Houston, because, you know, Texas in summer, it's a nice place to visit for some people. I am going to be online, of course, at lastweekinaws.com if people want to learn more, or even if they don't. And of course, I'm Quinny Pig, Quinny Pig, on the Twitters.
Terrific. And Thomas, what about you if they want to get in touch? What's the best way?
You know, obviously, you know, Thomas at, and the rest is the usual. Now, with that said, I got to recover from reInvent and all the marketing outward facing. I got to get back to work, you know. So yeah, I'll be heads down, you know, up to I don't know, definitely after New Year's.
All right, so come to our website, chaossearch.com, talk to us in the chat, and we'll either answer it for you or screen for Thomas. So
Yeah.
what we'll pass over to him. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. A big thank you to everybody who joined. Thanks for sticking around and for asking great questions. I think this was really fun. Corey, we really, as always, appreciate your time and insight. And so for everybody on the line, let us know what you thought about today's webinar. We'll have a super quick, easy survey at the end of this. We'd love to get your feedback. Should we do more of these? Let us know. And any parting words, Corey? I'll let you go first.
The same thing I tell my daughter every morning when I drop her off at preschool: make good choices. You'd be surprised how few people do.
Good,
Yeah,
good life advice.
my parting shot or comments is it was great to get back to a little bit more normal at a reInvent, and it reinvigorated our sellers and our marketing team as well as engineering team. So it was great to see the community, the Amazon community in person.
Terrific. Well, thank you both again. Thanks again to our audience. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Have a great day, and we'll see everyone again soon.
Thank you.
I will look for the end the session button.